So here's the thing. I know today's episode is called Everything We Know About the FCC, and we should definitely talk about that. But do you guys, whenever you think about the FCC, do you play in your mind that Eminem song where he goes, "The FCC won't let me be"? You know, do you guys, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't. I mean, I do know what you're talking about, but I don't do that in my mind. No, we both know and are very familiar with Eminem. Because Will Smith doesn't have to cuss in his rap to sell records. This is what you're getting at. This whole thing is about Will Smith for you.
No, this is about that "Without Me" song. And here's another thing. I met someone this
Ruchit,
week.
you missed that reference.
No, I totally don't know what this is. This is in reference to. Can you guys play? Dude, I feel like Steve Bannon. I feel like Steve Bannon right now. Like, you guys are just like, you know, you globalists are over there laughing at me. You're making fun. I don't understand what the globalists are doing.
Oh my God! You used an anti-Semitic slur against me just now. Is that code for Jew? Because I'm not Jewish. Globalism is a slur.
I'm not using. I'm just saying that Steve Bannon, you know, is feels like he's under attack by a bunch of globalists, and you know, as a globalist myself, you know,
you're not Jewish either.
Dude, you can be a globalist. You know, you don't have to be Jewish to be a globalist. A globalist is just somebody that believes in international order.
No, I'm pretty sure that's code for Jew, dude.
Dude, that's not how I think of it. I mean, I think globalist is a compliment. I mean, I consider myself a globalist.
Oh my God. Oh, this Philo-semitism is worse than anti-Semitism.
What are you talking about, AJ?
Oh, I love globalists. I love their traditions and their six-pointed stars.
No, dude. What I'm saying is that I'm not letting them take, just as I refuse to let people I disagree with take over the idea of the American heartland, I refuse to let them take the word globalist.
Oh my God. Oh, let's see if you can get a trademark on the word globalist. We're the globalists. We play bar mitzvahs.
Dude, I think that's a band that has legs.
I'm dying.
So AJ,
Steve Bannon and the Globalists.
Do you think we would get sued if we started a band called Steve Bannon and the Globalists?
There's actually a really good punk band in the 80s called the Reagan Youth, and a lot of their lyrics sort of like focused on Nazi symbology, except substituting Ronald Reagan for Hitler, and the band was extremely bad, but good, because in punk, when you're bad, it's good. Like, it's good to be bad. Not bad like Nazis are bad, but bad like, oh, I'm not very good at this.
But I'm trying anyway, or?
Like the Beastie Boys are bad? No, oh my God. No, but they were the Reagan Youth. All right, what do you want to do? You want to do the show? Is this the show? Is this the show already? What's the show?
I don't know, dude. A couple of things that we need to make clear up front.
Okay.
So when people check the show notes, okay, heartlanded.com, check the show notes.
Oh God, you have to check the show notes. Heartlanded.com. You have to check the show notes. Everybody pause your podcast and just check the show notes.
When people check the show notes, they cannot say that I am now attacking people for being globalists. I don't want a situation where people think I'm against the globalists. I'm pro-globalist.
Oh my God.
AJ, why are you sighing?
Okay, Ruchit, as a South...
Does me saying the word globalist, I mean, you know, and I'm not trying to, maybe now we can move into a slightly serious conversation, which is so I don't want to be offensive with the word globalist. So tell me why I think you are offended, which is obviously you're right.
Are you, Ruchit, as a South Asian, are you ever in a social situation where someone says to you, oh, where are you from? Oh, I love Gujarat. I love the chapati and the papadum. Right? And anyone ever like say that to you? Oh,
yeah,
I can get elbows deep into a big plate of saag paneer.
Yeah, people love saga. I mean, people love those things. Everything you're mentioning.
But isn't that like patronizing? Don't you feel like patronized?
No, not really.
Like you don't go to Ohio and tell people I love your griddled beef burgers.
Well, that's because I don't like griddled beef burgers because I'm vegetarian. But
you see what I'm saying? No, but it's like, oh, I love the globalists. I love their little circle hats. I love their little circle hats and the way they walk places on Saturday.
No, so no. So
I love globalists. Their long beards are so fuzzy.
But I mean, I'm not saying any of those things, right? So first of all, but second of all, I think like most of the time when people say things like that, they're coming at it from like a good place in their heart. So when they say, "Man, that's so cool that you're from India. I love curry," or whatever else, like they're trying to find like a common ground. Now, just because that's the only thing they associate India with, but it's a positive thing, obviously, that they're associating India with, or Indian people with. I mean, I think like it all comes with like where are they coming from in their heart. If they're coming from a good place in their heart, I should take them at that place, and I guess not be annoyed by it. I mean, that's how I feel, because people do come up to me and say like, "Hey, I love curry," or "I love what," but they're coming at it from a good place. So I don't know. I guess I just don't feel either bothered by it or like it doesn't make me feel awkward or anything like that, because I know they're coming at.
I love when your children throw the colored powders at each other.
I mean, how can anybody not love that? I mean,
No, I'm just saying, hey, you don't need to come on our podcast and tell me about how much you like love my culture and are like globalist, whatever. Like, it's fine. Like, you don't have to like. You don't need to like patronize me.
But I'm not patronizing.
No, look.
I'm like,
look, both of my parents are global. Both of my parents are globalists.
But you're talking about the term globalist as if it's owned by people.
No, I was raised globalist. We're raising our son globalist.
What I'm trying to say is that like I don't think the idea of being a globalist does not to me equate. I know it does to people that use it as a derisive term, but to me, being a globalist is like, believing in like global rules and global order and things like that. Like the word just means something completely different to me. I know how people use it.
I love globalists. I love their flat bread that they eat around Easter time.
But again, you're arguing about how, I'm not saying you're wrong to interpret the term that way. I'm just saying I don't mean the term that way. And I don't mean the term that way, right? I mean, I don't mean it like, I'm not trying to say, oh, I love
that their Sabbath is on the different day.
But again, like, I think of it as like believing in global rules and global order. So, I mean, I guess we're just talking past each other, right? Like,
Ruch, when you were little, did anyone, like particularly like adults or anyone like that, ever come up to you and say, "I love how brown your skin is"?
No, that I don't think that ever happened to me.
That's like a really specific compliment.
Yeah, I got that quite a bit. And I always didn't like it when people told me that. It just, I don't know why, but it always set me off a little funny. Like, what do you mean you love how dark my skin is?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on, that sort of specific thing. I think if people were constantly telling me that, maybe that would be sort of disturbing to me. I'm not saying you shouldn't be disturbed by that. What I'm trying to say is that like, that has a very specific connotation, and I'm saying globalists, by people that use that as a derisive term, there should be a way to use that word without it being derisive, is I think what I'm trying to say. Now, I think what AJ's saying is no, that is always used as a derisive word, and that word is owned by people that want to use it in a negative way. And I'm saying no, it isn't. Just the way that I think we're part of the American heartland.
So here's a question. Can a person who is not a globalist reappropriate the word globalist in a positive way?
I think so, can't they?
Should we do the show? Is this the show?
Yeah, I think we're in the
I can't tell if this is the show.
Well, I don't know either, but I mean...
Oh my God, we're in the show? But I said all of the, like...
What does it mean to be a show?
Wait, when I was talking about Chapati and papadum, was that the show?
Maybe.
Okay, you know what like weirds me out?
Yeah.
I have some family who are evangelical Christians. And apparently there's like this thing in the evangelical community where people like have Passover Seders because like like Jesus was Jewish and the Last Supper was a Passover Seder, and they're like, oh, like we're gonna have a Passover Seder, so that we can whatever. And then,
I've heard of this.
But then they have to like find Jews. They have to like figure out how to do a Passover Seder because it's actually like fairly complicated. So they have to like find Jews and be like, oh, I love your history.
Well, I guess let's use a different example for a moment, right? Which I think is similar enough. If like, I don't know, if you decide, AJ, that you really love Holi and you would like to throw a Holi party, and you have friends that happen to be Hindu or Indian, and you say, hey guys, like I just love Holi so much. Can you guys help me throw a Holi party?
No, I 100% would not throw a Holi. You know what I would do? I would call Ruchit. I would call Ruchit on the phone. I'd just like, hey, can you throw a Holi party so I can come to it? That's what I would do. I would say, you there, perform your culture for me.
I mean,
much less racist than just appropriating it.
Well, I don't think it's. Why is it wrong for you to want to celebrate my culture if you're doing it in like a thoughtful,
I don't know, dude.
and genuine way?
I find like a lot of the like Philo-semitism in the world like sort of uncomfortable. I find the like
what is Philo?
Philo, so it's weird.
Sorry, I've never heard this term before.
Oh, well,
Philo-semitism. I mean, I know what Semitism is. But...
Philo is like from the Greek for love, right?
Okay.
So you would say like, I guess it's sort of the opposite of anti-Semitism, but it doesn't like literally mean the opposite. I think the opposite of anti-Semitism is just like being normal. So Philo-semitism is frequently just an opposite side of the coin of anti-Semitism. So like when Donald Trump, and maybe I'm using the term idiosyncratically, but that's always seemed like the best word for me to describe the phenomenon. So like when Donald Trump spoke to the Republican Jewish caucus during the campaign, he said, oh, I love being in a room with you people because you're all deal makers. I've done a lot of deals. Nobody does deals like I do, except maybe in this room. I don't know if I've ever been in a room with so many people who do deals. Or there were stories about how Donald Trump didn't want black people in financial and accounting positions in his organization. He would much rather have Jewish accountants. And that sort of like Philo-semitism is still based on sort of stereotypes and misapprehensions that like deep down are still just the opposite side of the same coin on which you find anti-Semitism. And so like, I was just sort of like pretending to be offended earlier when you said, oh, I love globalists, but like actually like, it's like weird. It's like super weird.
I think, this is a really good conversation. I think somebody should listen to this other than us.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah, because I think, to me, it's like there's no categorical rule here.
AJ, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you think what makes you feel weird about that is maybe you feel that there is a sense of falseness to it? Like, I don't want to say, for example, that Ruchit is being false. I don't think he's being false or like disingenuous, but like just this sense of, so what I was thinking when earlier I told you how I got that compliment often about how dark my skin is, right? And how much people liked it, right? Like usually white people are the folks that would tell me this. And I was thinking like, why did that set me off, or why is that a memory that stuck out to me as something that I did not like growing up? And I think what I realized was, well, you're saying this, but when I look on TV, when I look around, I don't see people as dark as I am, right? Like, especially, I guess, growing up, maybe things have changed a little bit for the better now, but, everyone on TV is super white, right? Everyone in the movies white, right? Like when society creates a like when you're looking at society and you don't see folks as dark as you are around you, but then you have people saying, oh, I love how dark your skin is. You're thinking, well, is that really true if when you look around, you don't see other people like you?
I think I have two thoughts on that. First, I would separate out Ruchit from that. Like I was making fun of Ruchit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
That's what I meant when I caveated it.
Okay. Second, I don't think
Once again, I feel like Steve Bannon.
falseness is the word I would use, but I think the word I would use is superficiality or sort of like unseriousness or
Yeah, it's like a disconnect almost. Like it's
I think I know what you guys are talking about. I think I understand, and I think it's a gradient, right? Because I think that like people are looking for ways to feel commonality with each other, and so when a person comes up to me and says, says, man, or we say, where are you from? I say, oh yeah, I'm from India or whatever, or I was born in India, and they're like, man, I just love like papadum or something, right? I think
and chapati.
when they say that. Chapati, please. Yes. And chai, maybe even. I think people are trying to find a common ground, and I want to encourage them to go and find that common ground with me and with everyone without them being scared of, am I going to say the wrong thing? And I think you just have to judge each situation sort of, differently and say, where are they coming from? Are they coming from a place of wanting to find common ground and just doing that in an artful way, maybe? Or are they coming at it from either maybe a complete superficiality, sort of in one case, or are they coming at it from a point of condescension? And I think those are three different ways fundamentally that people can come at it. And it depends on how you hear it, right?
I know you have some British friends, right? Like, do you ever go up to them and be like, man, I really love beans on toast?
I mean, here's the thing, Tom. I think like
I do love beans on toast.
I don't really like it.
Really?
Well, I actually, that sounds terrible to me. But the point is, whatever inartful way someone goes to find commonality, it just matters. Like, are you trying to say that there's that the only way for if somebody's saying that, the only reason they're saying that is because either they have some like superficiality or some sort of prejudice? Like, do you accept that they could be coming at it just from an inartful way?
No, I think maybe AJ was hitting it when he said that, maybe it's not as thoughtful as it could be. And we have to separate out motives from, conduct, right? Like,
the motives really matter, right? And I think if the motives are right, then I think, I don't know, I'm not saying that everyone should take it and say, okay, I'm not going to be offended by that, but I'm just saying it's, it's not that big of a deal, I guess, is what I'm saying. And if people are, if they have a good heart, I think that's all I really care about.
Yeah, but you can have a good heart and do dumb things, right? Like, what do they say about the road to hell? But I don't think, and I don't want to speak for AJ, but at least for me, it's not that you're offended or that it's not an offense. It's just weird and off-putting sometimes. Is what I would say. It's not like I'm going to stop talking to them or I'm going to be like, man, this guy's weird or this guy's stupid or this guy's bad, right?
I think there's three options. One is they don't come up to you and say anything at all, right? I think another option is they say something that's sort of imperfect, And the third is maybe they make some sort of more eloquent and precise statement in a way to find commonality with you. And I would love for everyone to do three, but hell, I think like them saying something.
Or even the one where they don't talk to you at all.
I think it's better than them not talking to you at all.
No, man, I'm very antisocial.
I guess it's not this dichotomy or this setup that you have. These are, like, if I wanted to find some commonality with you, Ruchit, maybe I should come up and say, hey, Ruch, do you like playing board games?
Yeah, I mean, maybe so. I guess, yeah. I mean, that's certainly one way to do it.
What I'm getting at earlier, what I was trying to say is not that
it doesn't need to be cultural, is I think what you're saying.
Well, yeah, and it's not that if it is cultural, you're thinking, oh man, this is a bad person, or oh man, it's or you're taking offense to it, or anything in that realm, right? What I'm saying is, it's just, it's a little different. Like it puts you in a little different mindset. And it's not like you're acting on that mindset in a malicious way to a person that does that, right?
Sure. I guess I sometimes talk to people and they tell me that they are, not that they constantly live in fear of saying the wrong thing, but they are afraid of just sort of saying the wrong thing. And they feel like mildly muzzled because they don't always know the right thing to say. And so sometimes they try and think about it and they try and figure out what's the right thing to say. Sometimes they ask a friend, but a lot of people just sort of shut down because they're afraid that they're going to say the wrong thing. And I'd much rather them say something that's a little inartful than say absolutely nothing at all and kind of have that feeling that they can't connect. You know what I mean? I think for too many people, just based on conversations I've had, that's how they feel. And, I think like I don't think you guys are really doing this, but I think making fun of people for, saying the wrong thing, even though when they didn't mean anything bad by it, is a good way to sort of shut them up from conversation in general.
I just wanted to make fun of Ruchit for saying that he likes globalists.
This is what happens, AJ. We go from
I never asked to have to think about my feelings. I really wanted to do a little riff on globalism and then say Chapati a few times.
Well, and AJ, to be fair, I think we'll have plenty of opportunities this episode to make fun of Ruchit, as Ruchit has taken some extreme positions lately.
No, I haven't, dude. You guys have been portraying my positions as extreme when they're well within the norm.
Should we talk about some of the extreme positions that Ruchit has taken recently?
Okay, so I don't want this to be a time when we make fun of Ruchit, because I think that Ruchit has very reasonable views about humanitarianism and internationalism and even globalism. But the point I want to make...
As a globalist, I do.
The point I wanted to make is that the lesson of 2016 is that Trump debases and lowers all of his fellow travelers. Everyone who depends on him or does business with him or is in any way aligned with him eventually comes to regret that alignment of interests. You look at, say, Chris Christie or Mike Flynn or anyone who invested in any of his casinos or Paul Manafort. The list goes on, right? Like everyone, Paul Ryan, everyone.
Dude, half of the people you've named have no credibility of their own. So Chris Christie, Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn.
Paul Manafort had an extremely successful, under the radar money laundering gig for Russian oligarchs, and all he had to do was not be aligned with Trump even slightly, and no one would have ever heard of him or talked about it. Right? He was right.
Chris Christie had a perfectly underperforming state and complete, show of a political career before he decided to align with Donald Trump. Michael Flynn was doing perfectly fine as a paid commentator for Russia Today, happily sitting next to Putin. And only because he allied with Trump did he bring dishonor to his name.
Chris Christie was chair of the Republican Governors Association and was a credible candidate for Attorney General if a Republican won the presidency, and he spent a few months standing behind Trump while Trump makes fun of him, and then Trump made a meatloaf, and now he's a political pariah. Or look at Paul Ryan, right? Paul Ryan was the wonk master of the GOP, and he was the person who was drafted into service as Speaker of the House, even though he didn't want to do it, and he's been a fellow traveler in the Trump administration for 12 weeks, and suddenly all of the mystique around Paul Ryan's whole persona is washed away, right? Any even brief association with Trumpism is ruinous. And the reason why I think that is a very good object lesson is that earlier this week, Ruchit did something unthinkable.
Dude,
it was.
Let me talk about. Let me start from my perspective on this, and then you guys can feel free to give yours.
You mean Trump's perspective?
No, dude. See, here's what happened. I was having dinner, and I'm having dinner, and then I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning, and Trump had launched some missiles at Syria.
59 of them, right?
Only like 24 hit their target. It was very good. They did a very good job.
So that's according to Russian news services, AJ. So if you want to rely on Russia Today as propaganda, like a regular Michael Flynn, you're free to do so. But
that's fair. I actually didn't know the source of that claim.
Yeah, the source of that claim was Russian news services, and in fact, some Russian defense spokesman who was making fun of the Americans, us, for not hitting our targets. It was kind of funny. He was like befuddled.
What about the reports that airplanes are still taking off from that airbase?
No, that's being widely reported. That's like reported in the Washington Post.
Yeah. I don't think that's in dispute, Tom. So anyway, earlier this week...
so the purpose of these missiles was to prevent these planes from taking off from this air base, right?
Yeah, Washington Post. Despite U.S. missile barrage, Syria continues airstrikes against rebels.
So I think the purpose of this... well, okay, let me not sort of speak for Trump, but here's how I sort of saw the situation. Assad used chemical weapons for a second time.
I don't want to get into the merits of the strike. I really just wanted to make fun of you for saying Donald Trump did something that you thought was good. I'm actually going to cut out most of this because I think it's a huge downer. The point I really wanted to get at is that Ruchit saw something Trump had done, and he thought to himself oh, this could be good. This might be a proportionate or appropriate response to the state of affairs that exist in the world. This might be good. And later the same day, this is 11:39. Ruchit texts, "Oh, yeah, this is worse than no attack at all. I thought Trump of all people would understand that you don't want to look weak." Right? I mean, within the course of a single day, Ruchit went from thinking that Trump may have done a good thing or had a proportionate response to saying that, oh, actually being a fellow traveler with Trump is debasing and lowering. That's the point I really want to make. I'm going to cut out everything. I'm going to cut out most of this.
Well, here's the thing. I think that I sort of said that in response to some things you guys had said, which I think were unverified, as the case may be. But
look, Ruchit, there is a transcript of the things that were said and not said.
No, I know. So I think this is one of those situations where you can look at it and you can say, hey, if Trump had done nothing, we would have been like, oh my God, he's letting people use chemical weapons and doing nothing. If he had done a just massive response and, let's say, destroyed the Syrian Air Force, entirely, people would have said, dude, what the hell are you doing?
No, Ruchit, you're doing it again. You're doing it
what,
again.
What, using facts? What am I doing?
No.
What am I doing?
You're doing that thing where you think Trump might be good. Here's my jam. Here's my jam that it comes down to. Everyone who ever stakes any of their personal reputation on Donald Trump comes to find it debasing and lowering. And follow-up point, you trust Donald Trump of all people to wage a just war anywhere in the world.
No, but that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that in this situation, he did the appropriate thing. That's not saying that he's a good person. It's not saying that he's going to wage a just war. It's saying that in this particular situation, he did something resembling the right response. That's a pretty limited point. And what's wrong with saying
so? Wait, sending missiles to an airbase in Syria?
No, stop talking.
Is the appropriate response?
Do you want to? No, stop. Talk about the FCC. I don't want to. No, I just want to. No.
AJ, I know, dude. I know.
No, it's super. No, this is super off brand for us. Okay, one, there's no just war. There's no just war. There's no way to talk about this appropriately. We don't have access to any of the actual intelligence. Donald Trump is terrible. It's really off brand for us, for any of us on the show, to be agreeing with Donald Trump. The children are really sad. No.
No. So no matter what Donald Trump does, we can never say what AJ's saying is we can never say he did something correct. Is that what you're saying? No matter what he does.
Yeah.
I think he's just saying it's off brand.
Yeah. No, off brand. Gotta stay on message.
What's the message?
Yeah, what's the brand, dude?
The brand is check the show notes.
Yeah, that I agree.
Hit me up on Twitter.
At AJ Small. maybe we should talk about the FCC. But AJ, I don't think we can have like a discourse. I mean, not as in like the three of us, but I mean as a society, if we just say he can never do anything good no matter what he does. Like that's not good for us to do. That's not that different from Republican or Democrat or Tea Party people saying Obama can never do anything good ever, no matter what he does.
No, Obama did everything good.
AJ, can you cry right now?
No.
AJ, can you take a picture of your...
There's another important... Yeah, take that picture, but there's another important thing. Hold on a sec, guys. Hold on.
What's the important thing?
Okay.
Okay, FCC.
Okay, so the FCC, I think it might actually be useful to have like a deeper conversation about the internet privacy thing. I know we talked about it on a previous show, but now that it actually has been signed by Donald Trump, it might be worthwhile to talk about like a little bit more specifically what it is the FCC's rule did, because there's a lot of uproar about it. So basically, one thing you have to keep in mind is that there are things. This. I'm not going to get too in the weeds. There are information services and there are telecommunication services. So you can think of telecommunication services as sort of the basic utility services, right? So like having a phone, like your phone can call 911. You have like emergency services and 3-digit dialing. You have local calling service. You have touch tone dialing, right? Like those are the basic utility services. Those are the things that we have decided as a matter of public policy are things that we're going to classify as public utilities and things that we're going to encourage the universal deployment of. And we have a system of subsidies to help low income people have access to these services, etc. Okay.
Would you say they're part of our infrastructure?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So, I mean, and that is a term in sort of economics and public policy. Public utilities is a term that it applies to services that people receive that we sort of think of are fundamental to living in the world. I mean, there are the public utilities provide water to you. They make sure that there's transmission and distribution service so that electricity can reach your home. They provide local calling, touch-tone dialing, 3-digit dialing, 911 service, things like that to your home. Right? I mean, these are the things that we've just decided. Gas service. I have like a gas furnace to heat my home. And there's like a retail gas provider that serves my neighborhood, and that's a public utility, and they have public utility regulation for that.
So why is it important that we know what a public utility is?
Okay, so information services are things that you wouldn't really think of as the core public utility service. And this is a gross oversimplification, so please don't at me. But basically, vertical features that are served on top of the utility service you receive are regulated differently from the base telecommunication services. So a lot of local exchange carriers, like local telephone service carriers, also provide like a home alarm service, or they'll provide I don't know, like fancy ringback tones or whatever it is, right? Like the things that are not like the things that make your phone work. Those are vertical features. And answering machine services are another example. These are frequently classified as information services, and information services are much more lightly regulated. And the FCC made a huge decision about a year and a half ago, and they decided that broadband internet service, BAIS, B-A-I-S, broadband internet access service, is a telecommunication service. And that was important for net neutrality. It's been important because they've also expanded the system of low-income subsidies to include access to broadband service instead of just telephone service. And so the Telecommunications Act...
Hold on. So when you say broadband internet service is a telecommunication service, you mean so they're classifying it basically as part of the infrastructure of our society, right? Like as if it were a utility.
Yeah, they're classifying it as a public utility service and not as like an advanced vertical feature that would be on,
not as like Netflix, right? Like
right,
Netflix would
Netflix.
be an
So
example
Netflix
of, like,
Netflix is weird because it's an edge provider, right? So it's not a service provided by a utility company or a company in the utility field, but more like answering machine service. So answering machine service is an information service. So you have local exchange carriers; they provide local telecommunication service. That local phone service and 3-digit dialing, tone dialing, etc. That is a utility service, but you can provide utility service and vertical features. Right. So like answering machine service is a vertical feature and that is an information service. And we've said, you know what, like for information services, we have a much lighter regulatory touch. They're not rate of return regulated with like price ceilings and floors and stuff like that. So the FCC like has a system of like price ceilings and floors for telephone service, and they'll like give or take away a bunch of subsidies to make sure you're in between the price floor and the price ceiling and stuff like that. And they don't do any sort of heavy touch like that with respect to information services. So broadband internet service is a telecommunication service now. They've decided it's important enough that access to broadband is an important enough part of how commerce works, that it's a telecommunication service. One more back detail. The reason why telecommunication service has this public utility kind of regulation is that at some point people decided that there were like network benefits to everyone having telephone service. So what they said is that like when everybody has telephones, everybody's telephones are more valuable. If you just have a few people with telephones, right? If you're just like Mike Pence and you have this red phone that only your wife can call, then that phone is like much less valuable than a phone that anyone can call, right? Like there's like a network benefit. The more people have phones, the better.
Even other women can call.
Yeah, other women or
example.
whatever, right? Okay, so broadband is like kind of similar to that, right? I mean, you would think that subsidizing the deployment of broadband, or at least subsidizing low-income customers' access to broadband is a way of supporting, commerce. There's like internet commerce, YouTube, things like that. Like, there are like all sorts of reasons why you would think like this is good. This is good and important for our economy and for how people access information in the world and live their lives.
Well, if anyone truly thinks that you can, have a functioning economy in the United States without some form of access to the internet, right? Like without some form of broadband, I think that's pretty extreme, right? Like, just even if you're just one single lone individual, you really do need that access in order to find jobs, in order to do just basic things in life.
I mean, how are you going to listen to this podcast as an example?
In the European Union, access to broadband is considered like a human right. Okay, so the FCC reclassified broadband services. They used to be an information service. Now they're a telecommunication service. And the purpose of the rule we're talking about, or at least the justification that the FCC gives for that rule, is to harmonize the privacy and security requirements for telephone carriers and broadband carriers. Now that they're both telecommunications services, the Telecommunications Act sets out privacy requirements for telecommunications carriers. And the FCC was like, well, if these people are telecommunications carriers now, we need to harmonize our privacy rules and make sure that everyone's complying with the act. It's like the whole debate around this, Ajit Pai, who's now the chairman of the FCC, has said, oh, there's so much competition in the broadband market or whatever the case may be, that we don't need these privacy requirements. I mean, I think...
So, AJ, so I think it might be helpful to back up just a little bit. I mean, so for our listeners that don't know, AJ is a public utilities lawyer, right? And so you have a certain level of expertise that maybe not even Ruchit and I have, right?
Oh my God, no, I'm going to cut this. Not that it's like a problem, but it's like boring.
Yeah, but I think it's important that folks know that you do have a certain level of expertise in this field, right? But just to back up just a little bit further on this, so under the Obama administration, the FCC classified the internet service providers as telecommunication services. Trump wins the presidency. Trump puts his FCC chairman in command, and they start to try to roll back these classifications, right? And now it took an act of Congress to roll that rule back, right?
Right.
Why did it take an act of Congress as opposed to the FCC coming in and saying, you know what, just kidding about that rule?
Oh, okay. Okay, a process question. Okay, so the we've talked about in previous episodes the Congressional Review Act. Basically, the Congressional Review Act says that an administrative rule that is adopted by an administrative agency can be disapproved of by Congress, and what happens is within 60 legislative days or session days, it's 60 days in which Congress is in session, which can take months and months. The Congress can adopt a resolution disapproving of the rule. If the president signs the resolution, then the resolution, then the rule is revoked, and the agency is forbidden forever from ever adopting a rule that is similar to the rule that was disapproved of.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the FCC could revoke its own rules. It's just much easier for Congress to do it. And I think right now the FCC is like down a couple commissioners, right? Isn't it just O'Reilly, Clyburn, and Pai right now? Aren't they? Don't they have 2 vacancies?
I know the FTC has like 3 vacancies.
I think they share commissioners. I think they just trade back and forth, right? I don't know. Maybe like Ajit Pai's like night job is on the Consumer Product Safety Commission or something. Okay, hold on. Commissioners. Yeah, there are 2 vacancies. Oh my God, I named all 3. I'm dying. Minion Clyburn is the Democrat, and then Ajit Pai and Michael O'Reilly are the 2 Republicans. Okay, so to answer Tom's question, the Congressional Review Act.
Yeah, it's easier for Congress to do it than for the FCC to do it, right?
I think if the FCC does it, they have to like reopen it up for comment, right? So that could take,
they have
years.
to do a rulemaking. It'll take years.
Okay. So now the question, so going back to our earlier conversation, so that protecting the privacy of individuals in terms of selling your browsing history is only one of the many things that this rule does, right?
Yes.
What are the other things that this rule did that it can no longer do because Congress revoked it?
I mean, the rule has like some reporting requirements to make sure that broadband providers are following the rules. It has notice requirements to customers when privacy policies are changed by telecommunications carriers. It has like consent requirements. You have to obtain consent from customers before you sell any of their information or use it to target advertising, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing that I noticed about this rule is that it required these internet service providers to take reasonable measures to protect your private information. And if they have been, for example, hacked, they are required to notify you, the FCC, and any applicable law enforcement. I thought that was a pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good.
Yeah, no, it is.
Seems pretty reasonable to me.
All of those things have been disapproved by Congress, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unclear. I think it's like super unclear what the FCC can and can't do. The other thing to keep in mind is that the Communications Act and then later the Telecommunications Act set out privacy requirements, right? And so it's hard to imagine that a resolution under the Congressional Review Act would abrogate the underlying statute. So you can imagine a situation where Congress adopts a law and the law says, don't steal any ice cream. And we delegate to the FCC the authority to enforce a prohibition on stealing ice cream. And then the FCC adopts a rule that says, don't steal ice cream. And then Congress adopts a resolution disapproving of the rule. And you still can't steal ice cream, right? Like the Communications Act still says not to steal ice cream. So like, the whole thing is like really bizarre. I don't know why Clinton did this. Clinton signed the Congressional Review Act into law, and I think he did it to spite me in our podcast.
I think he was thinking.
Probably.
I mean, he was a man of much vision, so I could definitely see that he did it to spite you, and more importantly, this podcast.
Oh my God, I didn't even live in America when they did it.
I mean, maybe it was like one of those things where an oracle came to him and said, "There is a boy in Canada right now."
A little globalist.
You know what I mean?
Living in Toronto.
A globalist in Canada.
I think like the biggest policy disagreement I have with the FCC on this, and with maybe the Republicans as well, is this idea that there is real, true competition in the broadband internet market, when I think every study and every survey has shown that there is not.
Okay, so for my other life, not on the podcast, there's probably not much I can say about this, but there is one point I want to make. When Ajit Pai is saying that there's robust competition in the broadband market, what he is likely referring to is the proliferation of wireless broadband service, and folks can reasonably differ about whether wireless broadband service, like on your like T-Mobile, iPhone, or whatever, are a substitute for wireline, like over copper or over fiber internet service. But also in terms of wireline broadband competition, there was a report by the FCC in 2015 that said that 96% of census blocks have two or fewer choices of broadband service for a wireline broadband service. For 96% of census blocks in the country, the options for broadband service over wireline facilities are your local telephone company and your local cable provider, and that's it. And if you're lucky, maybe there's like a reseller, like maybe someone has an interconnection agreement with AT&T, so you can get service from AT&T, or someone that resells AT&T's services under a different brand. Like, ooh. Anyway, I will leave that to other people. I don't want to like give an opinion about whether there is or isn't robust competition in the internet market, but I think those are useful facts.
I will give my opinion.
Keep it on brand.
I just don't think that's true. I mean, I think like I have tried negotiating with my cable provider or threatening to leave, and Tom, you've talked about this too, and I've gotten laughed at because they know I have nowhere to go.
Well, the other thing with regard to comparing our broadband connections to wireless connections and saying, look, the wireless is competitive, is it reminds me of that famous quote that's attributed to Bill Gates. I don't know if he actually said it or not. I think there's some dispute about that. But the idea that 640K of memory is enough for anybody, right? Like this idea that wireless is getting faster and faster, and that should be sufficient for anybody, ignores the fact that, there are products coming out, innovations are always occurring that require more and more resources, and to tie our resource limit to wireless, I don't think it's a good idea,
Guys, should we talk about things other than the FCC? Even though
are there any Supreme Court cases?
Well, the only other thing before we jump into that is, did you guys read this article that the FCC wants to replace net neutrality with voluntary commitments of net neutrality?
I haven't read this article.
Oh, well, that's a thing.
This sounds completely absurd.
Wait, should I read it right now? Should I read it aloud into the microphone?
Maybe to yourself.
Should we also replace rules that say you can't steal with voluntary rules that say you can't steal?
Voluntary commitments, not commitments, not even rules, right? Yeah, right. Like if you give me your word, Ruchit, that you're not going to steal, then I think that should be good enough for anybody, right? Yeah, it's unfortunate. Is this on brand?
Oh, dying. I'm adding something to the show notes.
I really think we need to. I think our brand is to talk about things.
Oh my god, Ruchit! It's a podcast. It's a podcast. Our brand is to talk about things.
That's right. It's that broad.
All right, Tom, you got any cases?
Yeah.
Are there any good cases?
So yes, I got a couple of good cases actually. So this is everything that we know about this Supreme Court, where we're going to predict. The first case is TC Heartland LLC.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, that's our brand. That's our flavor. Why are they on our flavor? Heartland? They got the word Heartland in their name. We got the word Heartland in our name. What are they doing with our flavor?
TC Heartland .LLC.
Oh my God. .LLC?
Not .LLC, but just regular LLC.
No, this is my flavor.
Should we announce that Neil Gorsuch is now on the Supreme Court? I mean, at least our viewers, in case they didn't know that.
We got to start giving 9-count vote predictions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that on brand?
Neil Gorsuch is not on brand for us.
But talking about him is, we did an episode on him, AJ.
Okay, so TC Heartland v. Kraft Foods, and I think y'all are going to like this. The question in this case is whether a patent case can be brought in any place the infringer does business, or can it only be brought in the judicial district that the defendant resides. And before we jump too deep into this, the reason why this is an important case is, it's a big case. This is about patents.
This is not just this. This case will single-handedly determine what the economy of East Texas looks like.
Exactly.
So that is almost not a joke, because.
Yeah. So there was an amicus. There was an amicus in this case who said that a single judge in the United States out of the Eastern District of Texas has 25% of all patent cases, and the SCOTUS blog reported that
those are good judges.
SCOTUS blog reported that more than 40% of the nation's patent cases are filed in the Eastern District. So at issue in this case is whether too many cases, in the background is whether too many cases are being filed in the Eastern District of Texas. But the specific legal issue is a little bit more nuanced, because so when you file a lawsuit, you have to file it someplace. Usually you start with, I want to be very specific. So you have to pick your venue, right? Like, where are you going to file this lawsuit? The general venue statutes, the general federal statutes, give you specific options. The plaintiff has the option of filing a lawsuit in various venues as long as you comply with these venue statutes, right? The general venue, one of the rules of the general venue statutes says that you can bring a lawsuit in any judicial district where the defendant is subject to personal jurisdiction. And I'm being a little overgeneral in this, but that's basically what it says. The patent venue statute, there's a specific patent venue statute that says suit may be, and this is a quote, may be brought in the judicial district where the defendant resides, right? So the question is, in this case, is whether a suit has to be brought in, can be brought under the general venue statute, which is a lot more permissive, and and that's why these suits often get bought in the Eastern District of Texas, or whether it must comply with the patent venue statute, which says that it has to be brought, it may be brought in the judicial district where the defendant resides. The wrinkle in this case is in 1957, the court decided a case called Forco Glass, which concluded that the patent venue statute meant that it can only be bought in the state of incorporation only. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Tom, I think for our listeners, a little more background might be helpful, which is that at least traditionally, the way the world works right now is a person can bring a patent litigation lawsuit basically in any district in America, because as long as a company sells products to any consumer in that district, functionally, you can bring a lawsuit there. And so what has happened is people have filed lawsuits in the Eastern District of Texas, which is known colloquially as the Ruchit docket, because the judges process these lawsuits very quickly. They've become complete experts in patent litigation. Now, full disclosure, my wife does patent litigation, and she does a lot of plaintiff side patent litigation, so I'm definitely biased. But plaintiffs like to file lawsuits there because the judges get those cases to trial in 2 to 2.5 years, and the defendant can't really drag out.
I can't
those
believe
cases.
2 years is a Ruchit docket.
Yeah, I know.
It is. So, I mean, if you're a non-lawyer listener out there and you think, wow, 2 years is the Ruchit docket, how long do cases take that are not in the Ruchit docket? The answer is they can take 5 years, 7 years, God knows how long. So the practical effect, we'll go back to the case in a second, but the practical effect is that plaintiffs get their day in court very quickly, relatively speaking, and defendants are, they have to hire lawyers, that know how to practice in this area. And, if you're a company in San Francisco, you don't want to be sued and have to go to East Texas. You would rather be sued in California, where you have some amount of home court advantage, at least as compared to having to go to East Texas.
Yes. Yeah, basically that's it. In this particular case, Kraft actually sued in Delaware. Kraft sued Heartland in Delaware, and then Heartland sought to transfer the case to Indiana, its place of incorporation, saying, look, under the patent rules, it doesn't authorize a lawsuit in Delaware. It only authorizes a lawsuit in the state of incorporation, which is Indiana. And Kraft responds, whoa, 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 under the general venue statute, I can bring the statute wherever the infringement occurs, basically. And so that's how the case gets to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has to decide, look, are these two statutes, the general venue statute and the patent venue statute, coexistive, or are they mutually exclusive? That is, the patent venue statute carves out patent cases from the general venue statute.
Well, wouldn't the patent venue statute be like completely useless if it had no effect? I mean, if it basically said, if like, because the general venue, I guess, actually, no, I think I understand this. I get it.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason why I think the case is going to come one way or the other is if you look at the venue statutes, they're all building upon each other, right? Like they go, look, generally you can do this. If you're in this situation, you can also do this. If you're in another situation, you can do this. You know, that these statutes sort of add upon each other, right? As the way the statutes read. And so
what did the lower court say?
That's a good question.
I mean, if this is a corporatist Supreme Court, as many have alleged, then I think they are definitely going to find that the general venue statute the patent venue statute trumps, if you will, the general venue statute, meaning that you will only be able to sue people in their home state or in the state of their incorporation, and not in the Eastern District of Texas.
The Federal Circuit found for Kraft, right, and read the patent venue statute to broaden the general venue statute.
I think that's so. Here's the problem, right? I mean, venue shopping is like a problem, like people abusing the policy preferences of the Eastern District is like a problem, but if you said you could only do the state of incorporation, the District of Delaware would become completely overloaded with patent cases.
Well, and the other question is, how do you sue a patent infringer that is incorporated outside the United States?
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I know that usually the Supreme Court is more likely to reverse than affirm, but I think we're looking at like 8-1 affirm.
Well, and on that point, though, I don't know if I don't know if Gorsuch will be participating in this case.
Why?
Well, he wasn't at oral argument.
Oh, that doesn't stop judges from voting.
He hasn't read
you don't
briefs.
know that. I mean,
Dude,
they're
he's
online.
been reading the
He has
briefs.
access to the internet.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude,
well,
maybe.
Well,
depending.
Maybe.
Depending on how competitive Colorado's internet is, I guess.
I mean, I would bet you that someone at the Senate communicated with Gorsuch weeks ago that there's a really high likelihood of him being confirmed and that he should start reading on some cases he may have to vote on.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, he's got to like hire clerks and stuff too.
Yeah, I think he's actually already hired his clerks. At least that's what Above the Law reported.
Tom,
no, I'm
are
not
you
one of the clerks.
AJ, are you?
I don't want to talk about it.
One of the clerks.
Clerking for Gorsuch is really off-brand for me.
Dude, if you're clerking for Gorsuch, just from a branding perspective, we'd likely have to kick you off this podcast. Even though your perspective would become valuable as it related to everything we know about the Supreme Court.
All right.
But
8-1 affirm. Ruchit, may I recommend 8-1 affirm?
I'm going to go with 6-3 reverse.
Well, I had written in my notes that the court was going to affirm for Kraft, but I have it 5-3.
Have we convinced you at all, Tom, or are you sticking with your 5-3 affirm?
I'm going to stick with 5-3.
Guys, I really hope I'm wrong and you guys are right, but...
well, we're all saying that this case is going to be affirmed, right?
No, I'm saying reverse. 6-3.
Oh, you're saying reverse? Sorry.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you're reversing. AJ and I believe that it's going to be affirmed.
Yeah, I think it should be affirmed, by the way, but I don't think that's how it's going to come down.
Yeah, and just as a general rule, that's how I've been treating it too. Is I'm not interjecting my own personal thoughts. I'm just predicting or just guesstimating what I think the Supreme Court would do.
I'm just calling balls and strikes based on what I think the Supreme Court will do.
Yeah, humble Scrivener.
That's me.
Yes. Okay, so next case.
Do it.
We need to start that as a hashtag, by the way. Hashtag Humble Scrivener. Another good band name, Humble Scrivener and the Globalists.
Okay. So this is the second and last case for today. It's Lee v. United States. The issue in this case is, can you set aside a plea bargain conviction if your attorney incorrectly tells you that you will not be deported by pleading guilty? Yeah, so this is sort of an immigration case, and you can kind of...
Tom, is it also a challenge to the sort of, what is it, like Sixth Amendment right to counsel or what have you? Like saying that you got insufficient counsel or what?
Well, it is in the sense that it's a question of how can a conviction be overturned in the context of an insufficient counsel, right? And under the court's seminal decision in Strickland v. Washington, a defendant who wants to have his conviction overturned based on ineffective assistance by his lawyer must show basically two things. First, that his attorney's representation was deficient, which I think in this case is pretty clear by all standards, because the attorney told the defendant, Lee in this case, that he will not be deported if he pleads guilty, but in actuality he is up for deportation now. After pleading guilty. And then the second issue is, look, if you have this deficient representation, are you prejudiced by that ineffective representation, right? And it's an issue for Lee because the question is, look, was Lee prejudiced by his lawyer telling him that he was not that he was not going to be deported? The Sixth Circuit, the lower court, held that, look, he was not prejudiced because there was an overwhelming amount of evidence that Lee was guilty. So even if he had gone to trial, basically not accepted the plea bargain and pled guilty, he would have been found guilty anyway. So what's the big deal? Lee's argument at the Supreme Court is, look, there should be a special rule for immigrants because an immigrant facing the prospect of deportation, even a longer sentence would be better than being deported. And he gives like several examples. For example, a Nigerian LGBT immigrant, if forced to return to Nigeria, may be killed. And so that person might choose to go to trial, even if that trial meant definite longer sentence in jail in the United States.
This is, I'm gonna. So, what did the lower court rule, Tom?
The lower court was the Sixth Circuit, and they ruled that Lee was not prejudiced. So they ruled against Lee and said that his conviction cannot be overturned for ineffective assistance of counsel.
Why did the lawyer think that? Like, why did the lawyer give that advice? Was there any indication from the prosecution that it would be the case?
So my understanding is that at the time of the trial or the pleading guilty, neither side believed that he would be deported, right? So the prosecution was not seeking deportation, and that was not something they were trying to do. So I don't know why he gave the advice he did, but in retrospect, it was not good advice, and he was almost certainly going to be deported if the conviction stands.
I'm gonna go with. This is really hard. I'm gonna go 7-2 reverse.
Oof. I'm gonna say 5-4 in favor of the government. Wait, is that a reverse or affirm?
That's an affirm.
5-4 affirm.
Okay. I'm going to go 6-2 affirm. I just I think that this court is going to choose the easier rule over the more complicated rule, because if you're
that's a good point.
yeah, it is a much easier rule to say, look, you have to show prejudice means that it would have made a difference, right? And he can't say that it would have made a difference in his outcome, the ineffective assistance of counsel. Well, that's everything we know about the Supreme Court. Do we want to do some sidebars?
Yeah, dude. Let's do it real quick.
I usually go first. Someone else should go first.
Ruchit, you want to go first?
No, dude. You guys go first. Actually, I'll go first. Never mind. So, guys, my sidebar is about this awesome vegan place in New York City. It's called By Chloe. And so this is it started by this lady named Chloe. And the food is really, really good. And it tastes, they have an oyster mushroom bacon that people say is amazing. And bacon eaters say it tastes like bacon. I'm not a bacon eater, but I thought it was awesome.
Does it taste like oyster?
It tastes like mushrooms, but it tastes like mushroom bacon is what people say. Mushrooms and bacon.
I have to tell you, I love tempeh bacon. I don't like bacon, but I love tempeh bacon.
So you would love this place, AJ. And this recommendation is very on brand for us because recently Chloe had to go to arbitration with her investors. And the investors won, and they had sued her for, I think, breach of fiduciary duty, breach of contract, all kinds of very ugly things. And so Chloe lost, and Chloe's been forced out of the namesake By Chloe. But I heard, so I was telling people in New York City about this when I was like having meetings and stuff about how amazing By Chloe was. And someone I was meeting with who is a vegetarian, but is part of all the right vegan and vegetarian groups on Facebook, and Vegans of New York, that type of thing, told me that Chloe has alleged that the investors were trying to get her to use animal products.
Bum, bum, bum.
And she refused. And so this is all the rage, pun intended, in the vegan community right now in New York City.
This
So
is
if you're
interesting.
a vegan in New York City, it is. It's almost like something we should probably talk about.
Ruchit, your sidebar started kind of slow, but you brought the intrigue towards the end. This is actually very interesting.
Good. So maybe we can talk about that next time, and maybe we can get like a lifetime. Maybe I can get free meals by Chloe forever, or at least get a By Chloe brought to Austin where I can have free meals forever. So it's more practical for me. But if Chloe is listening to the show, at least I would love to interview you about your legal experience and about how you make that awesome oyster mushroom.
Chloe, hit me up on
bacon.
Twitter.
She also has a great it's a vegan cream of broccoli soup that is like the most amazing broccoli soup I've ever had in my life.
Tom, what's your sidebar?
Okay, my sidebar is this Yale Climate Opinions Map. It's just a visualization of what people believe about global warming and climate change, and it's a very cool, well done visualization. But one of the most striking things about this visualization is if you look at it divides the opinions into several categories. One is, do you believe global warming is happening? Right? And it seems like an overwhelming amount of people in the United States, 70%, believe that global warming is happening, and it divides it up by county and jurisdiction. You can kind of see that it falls along the sort of which counties voted Democrat versus which counties voted Republican. The thing that I thought was super interesting about this map is that if you look at the next question, do you believe that global warming was caused by human activities? Well, fewer people believe that, right? And again, it's divided amongst Republican, Democrat. The next question is, do you believe that most scientists think that global warming is happening, right? And even fewer people believe that, right? So less than a majority, 49%, believe that scientists believe that global warming is happening, right? And most people think that there's a lot of, or not most people, there's a large chunk, 28% believe there's a lot of disagreement in the scientific community, which is actually the opposite of true, right? And then the next question they ask, the next visualization is, do you trust scientists about global warming, right? And 71% of people say they somewhat or strongly trust scientists about global warming. So it's just strange that most people think that scientists are in this heated disagreement, but whatever they believe, most people trust them. You know,
That is interesting.
That is, yeah.
Tom, where are you on this?
I believe global warming is happening. I believe that humans are contributing to climate change, and I think most scientists do believe that global warming is happening, and I do trust the scientists on that.
This makes Tom a globalist.
All right, should I go?
Yeah, go.
Do it, AJ.
Okay. My sidebar this week is a person named Bruce Belden. He goes on Twitter using the Twitter handle pisspiggrandad, PISSPIGGRANDAD. He is a late 20-something Jewish socialist who used to live in California, and then he moved to Syria to join the YPG, which is one of the rebel groups fighting ISIS in Syria. He's kind of part of Weird Twitter. I don't know how much you know about Weird Twitter, but Weird Twitter is a place on Twitter where people are weird. At Fart is part of Weird Twitter. Anyway, so there's a New York Magazine profile of him that you should check out. I just want to read 2 pull quotes from the article because they're both very funny. One, on Inauguration Day, his Kurdish comrades kept mocking him by chanting America coup, which translates as America is over. Belden spent most of the day online trolling Barack Obama, quote, "Lol dog, you can't drone Yemen anymore," and white nationalist Richard Spencer. The other quote that I thought was pretty funny, when Belden turned 27 at the academy to celebrate, his commanders let him take several shots with a Soviet sniper rifle, and he had a few hours on the internet, which he used to log on to Twitter and tell a liberal with whom he disagreed, quote, "I want you to eat my ass until the sun explodes." What's pretty funny, that liberal that he was asking, he told him that he wanted him to eat his ass was Jonathan Chait. So for given definitions of liberals, I guess that counts. He also was interviewed on an episode of Chapo Trap House, and it is pretty good. He talks a lot about just like how miserable it is to live in Syria and fight ISIS. Anyway, when you hear those sort of romantic stories about like Americans enlisting in the Spanish Civil War in the 30s, or about like Hemingway going to fight in the Greek Civil War against fascism, piss pig granddad. That is what it's like when millennials fight fascism.
So I'm really confused by this guy. He's fighting for America or against the Syrian regime?
No. He joined a Kurdish militia group.
Okay.
Called YPG.
And so he is fighting ISIS.
Yeah.
How does he feel about Assad? Does he have an opinion, or?
I'm sure he thinks Assad is bad. I mean, he's a socialist.
Huh. I'm looking at some of his tweets and the things he's retweeting. Breaking: Daesh, which is ISIS, has now launched an attack on Syrian forces not far from the airfield that Trump bombed. I hope Americans are proud. Al-Qaeda thanking the U.S. for bombing the regime. This is very weird.
Yeah, he's part of Weird Twitter.
I think he's with...
Oh, another person on Weird Twitter.
Is Weird Twitter kind of like inconsistent Twitter?
Another person on Weird Twitter that people should check out is Chris Hooks, CD Hooks. He writes for the Texas Observer, and he's very good. He does a very good job.
Do you think if we link to this guy from our webpage in the show notes, check the show notes, we're going to end up on an NSA watch list?
Yeah, I hope so.
I don't think we should link to this guy.
No, we have to link to him. He's my sidebar.
Yeah, that's the rules of sidebar.
I don't think we should tweet at him for sure, but I think we should tweet at Chloe.
Richard,
she's chefchloe.com.
I want to say one last thing before the guitar music plays at the end of the show.
That's her Twitter handle?
Are you ready?
No, it's her website, chefchloe.com.
What's her Twitter handle?
I don't. Oh, hold on a second. AJ's trying to talk. It's Chloe Cascarelli.
I'm going to close out the show, and then we're all going to stop recording and stop talking to each other, right? Okay, you ready?
Can we just talk a little bit after that?
I want you to eat my ass until the sun explodes.
Dude, why are you saying such things? We don't want this to be on the show, do we?
It's so good. Piss Pig Granddad. It's so good.
I think this is off brand, AJ. This Piss Pig Granddad person.
When was the last time you took up arms for the cause of socialism, Ruchit? Who are you to judge Piss Pig Granddad?
Hold on a second. Is he taking up arms for the? How is it for the cause of socialism?
Oh, I think YPG is socialist. I mean, the people in YPG are like setting up like a.
I mean, listen, fighting ISIS is good, but how is that socialist?
No. Like YPG is socialist
to fight ISIS. Oh, but aren't socialists like against wars?
According to Piss Pig Granddad in the Chapo Trap House interview, like the people that he's with are like they call themselves like libertarian Marxists or something. But as far as he can tell, it's like basically Stalinism.